on my screen. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tatiana Show. Today is Tuesday, April 19th. Beautiful spring day here in gorgeous New Jersey, Sunshine State. Not really, but today it is. And we're here with Josh Shigala. Hey, Josh, how's it going?
Hey, Tatiana, how are you?
I'm good. I feel like I haven't seen you in a long time.
I know we skipped 1 week, so it was, yeah, it felt weird. It felt weird. We're pretty regular like that. We tend to pump out a show every week. So, folks, make sure you subscribe because, we have some great guests and always some interesting stuff. Today, we've got some fantastic guests lined up. Tatiana, why don't you tell the folks all about them?
Yeah, sure. Today I think of this as like Army Day, even though people aren't necessarily even in the Army. I think it's Military Day here at the Tatiana Show. So we're going to have Blake Miles, who wrote a really interesting piece for Bitcoin Magazine about, I don't know, military warfare tactics for Bitcoin. I don't know. I'm not really paraphrasing that correctly, but that's why I'm not in the military. Um, and then we have my really good friend Adam House from Piranha, Nashville metal-ish kind of band, and also a writer for Chaos Theory. So, yeah, we've got a kind of an interesting day. Before we get started, I wanted to just say thank you to our sponsor, Kirk Phillips, of the BitcoinCPA.com. He is helping me do my taxes right now. He has taken pity on my poor, pathetic soul. And let me tell you something, it is not easy to do your taxes or work with Bitcoin with your business. But the Bitcoin CPA is creating these courses where you can watch them. The first few, I think, are free, and then you have to pay like $99 or something. But they kind of give you an overview on how to look at Bitcoin as a business integration. And he also has a Bitcoin business book as well. So
Yeah, that's really important, folks. You don't want to, as much as we all hate taxes, and I have a moral objection against them, but you don't want to end up in prison.
you know what? But like people on my Facebook who are annoying and insist upon giving me their unsolicited opinions, um, are saying that I don't need to pay my taxes because it's a voluntary program. But I think that if that was true, then Wesley Snipes wouldn't have gone to jail. And then Erwin
And the
Schiff,
Browns.
Erwin Schiff went to jail, and he at least was, well versed in why the IRS shouldn't be taking money from us. So I don't know. I'm not going to give it a try though. I'd rather just pay them and have them leave me alone. But I wonder
Yeah,
about that.
yeah. Well, it's voluntary, and you go to prison if you volunteer to go to prison.
Right, which I understand that that's totally ridiculous, but I'd like to know where the justification is. Like, is it voluntary or not? And how do they justify it to their minds, right? A lot of people that work for these organizations, they probably don't really think that much about this stuff, but somebody must be thinking about it. And doesn't somebody say, thought this wasn't voluntary? I mean, remember that movie Freedom to Fascism, America Freedom to Fascism?
Yeah, yeah. What was his name again?
Aaron Russo.
Aaron Russo. Yeah,
He had
of
he
of
had
Twins
interviewed.
fame.
Yes, of Twins fame, yes, and Trading Places, I think, as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was interviewing IRS people, and then they just stopped paying their taxes after a while. I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but I think it'd be really cool if everybody just stopped paying. Not that I'm
Yeah.
advocating that. Actually, I am, but not on an individual basis. It needs to be a mass thing. Otherwise, they're just going to pick some of us off and just throw us each in jail, and nobody wants that.
Yeah, well,
Um,
it's like in Bug's life, the grasshoppers come in and then eventually the little bugs realize that if they all work together, they're much greater than the silly grasshoppers.
yes.
But apart from all that, I think that's a really good disruptive area to help people because I think in Bitcoin as a business, and I've heard it before, people have wanted to take Bitcoin and have found it very hard because you have to keep track of how much a Bitcoin was worth at the time of a transaction, and it can lead you down just taxes are hard enough already without all that nightmare. So and people are working on platforms that will help you do all this. I can't think of one at the top of my head now, but folks, if you know of one, please leave it in the comments below.
Well, there's Libra tax. But like I tried to set that up, and it didn't want to sync, and then I had to export, and I don't know. I just
No.
it's not easy as a business to accept Bitcoin. Like the other day, I got a payment, and I had generated a wallet special for that payment, but I didn't do it in my Coinbase. I did it in a different wallet, but I didn't remember. And in Coinbase, and maybe I'm doing something wrong, but you've got your accounts, and you can't just search through your accounts for a certain address that you have. You have to flip through all of them and click on get Bitcoin address 1B. No, okay. Get Bitcoin address. I mean, this is
Oh,
totally
how
ridiculous.
annoying.
I don't know why I haven't thought of that. I'm thinking maybe I need some sort of a new um, way of doing invoicing that will be less torturous. But even looking for that less torturous way seems really annoying and time consuming, and I don't have the brain space for it. So if anybody knows about that stuff and wants to talk about it, I can probably give you 8 minutes of attention span, and then I'll totally die away. And I think that's quite generous. That's the other thing, Larry. Like, who wants to think about this stuff?
Yeah, yeah, it is really annoying to think about. Um, but
But that's okay.
uh, we have here our wonderful guest just sitting here. So let's move straight into that.
He
Um,
definitely pays his taxes. He's not like, well, so do I, but
he, yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's it's the 18th. It's the income tax amendment. That's the one that really changed the game when they brought in income taxes.
right.
yeah.
Well, they didn't always have that.
I think it's 18th Amendment. I think
Yeah.
19th, one of the two.
Yeah, well, it needs to be unamended.
That's
Good
possible
luck.
too. You can do that. Yeah, the 18th Amendment was the alcohol one. I think the 19th was one that they introduced income taxes, and the 21st was the one that they repealed the alcohol. So now we just need to repeal the income tax one.
Yeah, I saw a great meme. It was like, the Incas or the Mayans ripping out the heart of someone. And they're like, yeah, without killing a person every day, we won't have the sun. And then underneath it was like, without income tax, we won't have the roads or anything good. So yeah, it's just
Yeah, I don't think they're going to repeal that. Why would the government want to give us back our money when they've been so successful at taking it this long? They're used to that.
Yeah, that's an uphill battle right there.
Well, what can you
No
do?
doubt.
So Blake, you wrote an article basically outlining as a Green Beret how what sort of tactics would be used by a government, or I guess it doesn't even have to be a government, but in your case it was, and how you would basically split apart and destroy Bitcoin through social engineering.
Wait, time out. What's a Green Beret? Before we go on, what's the difference?
Yeah, that's a good question. All right, so a Green Beret is Army Special Forces, United States Army Special Forces.
So it is an Army episode after all. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were talking about our airborne adventures with Adam earlier. But yeah, so what a Green Beret's sole purpose is unconventional warfare. And so what unconventional warfare consists of is either building up a resistance against standing governments and helping out an insurgency, or supporting a standing government to fight against an insurgency. So the tactics are pretty similar on both sides, whatever side of the coin you're fighting. So that's what we were stood up for back in the late 50s, early 60s, and during the end of the Korea and the early Vietnam Wars. And our ancestors in unconventional warfare in World War II were helping the French resistance fighters against the Germans, blowing up supply lines, and basically just waging warfare in ways that aren't just lines and lines of people shooting at each other. It's
So
fun.
is this the kind of thing that we always, for an example, when Mossadegh of Iran got taken down, he was an elected president there, or prime minister, or whatever they have. It was the CIA going in there and starting rumors and really working on this social engineering to get to start a movement or to split up, divide and conquer. Is this the sort of thing that I guess, does the CIA have a part to play then in with the Green Berets, or is it something totally different?
Well, the CIA, yeah, we work together in a lot of different scenarios, either officially or unofficially. You put a Venn diagram up. There's a lot of things that we don't have that we do in common, since we fall under different commands. Department of Defense is a separate entity, but there's a lot of gray area where we would operate together. For instance, right after 9/11, the first guys on the ground in Afghanistan had CIA people that they worked with, and we had guys from Special Forces that were attached to CIA elements and operating over there. So, and this sort of game isn't specific to the United States by any stretch of the imagination. Every country has unconventional warfare experts that go out and wage unconventional warfare. Even non-state actors like ISIS, they're pretty much unconventional warfare to the extreme, and they send people far and wide to do various things, whether it's finances or actual kinetic targets. So that's
What does kinetic target mean?
Yeah, it's a fancy term for high energy projectiles causing damage on equipment or people.
Oh, so killing
Yeah,
things. Got it.
yeah, that's the fancy way of putting that. Yeah.
Wow, that's not cool. They shouldn't. So, like, how focused is the ability to kind of disrupt things through social engineering? Like, how do you monitor whether or not you're making progress? How do you keep everybody in line? And maybe go into that a little bit more, like a description of what that would look like for people who have.
Yeah, sure. So I'll come up front and say that the extent of my experience in this realm is pretty limited. I had on-the-ground experience engaging in this sort of stuff over in Iraq. It was more it's a lot similar to police work. You're gathering intelligence, you're putting pieces of the puzzle together on the big map, and you're trying to understand what's going on so you can influence the ground situation. So what I would say is that if you have a small group, you can take a small group of highly intelligent people that have a lot of tools at their disposal, and they can do a lot of different things, and it's a concept. You can run circles with a small group of A team, can run circles around a huge group of B players. So the way you accomplish these things is you have a long-term goal, and for this case it's disrupt, slow down, destroy, cause problems for the digital currency community, and Bitcoin's at the top of that heap. So what you would do is you identify the schisms, you identify conflict points, and you apply leverage to make them worse, break them.
See, the thing I think, because you could put the conspiracy hat on. Like I hate that term, conspiracy hat, but because these things happen. It's not like that let's say the block size debate is a really classic divide and conquer sort of thing, where we say, okay, here's a really divisive subject, and that will split the community in two, so that we have less numbers. They start really being nasty to each other, and then you can split those even further by dividing those guys, and then eventually you just get this sort of people just hating on each other. They don't even remember really why, and it really stuffs with it. But the thing is that even if they did take down Bitcoin, the next altcoin is just around the corner, and it's really an idea whose time has come. I don't think even all the social engineering in the world won't destroy cryptocurrency as a concept. It might destroy a certain blockchain, but I really can't see it being a long-term. So even if someone does want to do it, I think it'd be a pretty silly thing to chase. But then again, they chase drug wars, so that's also totally pointless.
So, let's talk about an idea whose time has come. Blake, I don't know how you feel about Ron Paul. I will not force you to like Ron Paul, but I was a big Ron Paul person, right? And the Liberty movement was really, really hot in 2012. You know, it was the precursor to the burning fever and the Trump mania, whatever. But it was, you know, bringing together all these different people, and the motto was nothing can stop an idea whose time has come, whatever. But now it's 4 years later, and that idea has somehow been buried because there's been a ton of infighting in that community. I've seen it firsthand. I've been extremely disappointed by people in this space. And I think that Bitcoin is also, you know, gone through a little bit of a weird phase right now. You know, we've got conferences where it used to be, you know, power to the people, and then the next time the conference, the theme is how to help the IRS and the FBI use Bitcoin to help, you know, to help them loot more money from people. Like, this is totally not what I signed up for. So while I think that that cat is coming out of the bag in terms of an evolution of money and an evolution of trade and trade of value, I think that we could definitely get messed up. You know, because if you're a good company and you are competing with a company that's, let's say, evil or something, and they have more money than you, then you can just spend the next few years toiling around trying to get out of the crap, and then maybe you run out of money, which is fine, or maybe you just run out of steam because there's not an endless amount of steam. So I don't know. I think that we are kind of subject to it on another level, because it could slow it down. It's like the war between mice and cats or whatever. The mice will win, but the cats will be well fed. And I'd like to stop eating the feed. I'd like to stop being eaten by random, you know, animals. So, any thoughts on all that?
Yeah, well, I completely agree that the concept of a distributed ledger, digital currency, that I completely agree. It's a zombie idea. I can't remember where I heard that term first, but you're not going to kill this idea. And I think I realized that once I discovered what the darknet was, how it worked, and what was going on back there. I'm like, okay, this is the drug war antithesis taking to an extreme, and because that exists and because it's out there, you're not going to put this, you know, genie back in the bottle. So I'll definitely agree that it's not going away. And from my perspective, like someone looking at this from a strategic perspective of, all right, they either get an order from somewhere above, or their own entity saying, all right, how do we disrupt Bitcoin specifically? And disrupting a community is a lot easier than disrupting an idea and challenging it. So for the same reason as you guys mentioned, you can find schisms, you can find you know, fractures, and you can exploit those and make them worse, and you know, add misinformation, disinformation, everything in between, and make that worse. But like, I would guess that they would look at it and say, yeah, the idea isn't going away, so all we can do is slow it down. And I think I kind of alluded to that at the end of my article, is that, you know, it's like the yacht's already left for the docks. I mean, this giant steam cruiser is already heading in a direction. You got some dudes fighting, seemingly fighting in the cabin, arguing over which way to turn the wheel, but it's going regardless. So anybody trying to slow that down is basically just, you know, they're putting a little tugboat trying to veer it in different directions or distract people, the people on the boat. So the worst case scenario would just be government start cracking down on anyone involved in the industry, and, you know, throwing people in prison and making people disappear. That I don't see that happening unless things get really bad, like World War III type scenario. But you know, that's doomsday type scenario stuff, and hopefully it doesn't come to that. But I think in the grand scheme of things, the way the world looks right now, digital currencies and Bitcoin and stuff like that, it's really not on a lot of people's radar, because there's a lot of people that are waking up every day fighting, you know, doing actual fighting, and so it's a good thing good technology, great technology long term, but real bombs start dropping from planes, then the picture is going to change a lot, because we haven't really experienced that in not in my lifetime.
I mean, we saw, a lot of kickback to the printing press, for instance, from the church, because they controlled all the information, and all of a sudden we had Martin Luther, create a different version and start giving other ideas, and the church would freak out and try to control these printing presses. But something like a distributed ledger is really, really, it's practically impossible. But like you said, the idea can be slowed down, and you can start calling people pedophiles that use it, and then all of a sudden hardly anyone wants to use it because they don't want to be associated with bad stuff. And we saw that with the Silk Road and stuff like that. But the thing that also tends to happen is if they're successful in crushing a new technology that's subversive, it usually comes back stronger and better and worse, actually. Like, the Silk Road got taken down, and they had there was a very strict rules on the Silk Road: no child porn, nothing that can initiate force or and stuff like this. Once that got taken down, all of a sudden we had all sorts of other marketplaces that just allowed everything. It was just like, whatever. And so, not to say that they wouldn't have happened anyway, but it sped all that up. So it sort of has the opposite effect. And now we've got black markets. Since the Silk Road's collapse, we've got way more and way bigger. I mean, the transaction volume is far beyond Silk Road could have even dreamed of back in the day.
I mean, Silk Road served as an advertisement for those kinds of sites. You know what I mean? Yeah, they threw Ross in there forever and ever, but really, honestly, I gotta wonder who owns these new sites, because there's a lot of people that are in bed with the cartels, and I don't know, it could be a good business model for some people. So I don't know. It did definitely backfire on them. And look at Open Bazaar. Open Bazaar is legit, but it's sort of like a less sketchy Silk Road.
No, I mean, what they're saying is we're for everything. It's a base protocol to sell everything.
Wait, you could buy drugs on Open Bazaar?
Well, actually, I did see someone was selling some grass, yeah. But it's the thing is, it's not anonymous yet, and it will be. But I wanted to get back to your article, Blake, because I do find it really fascinating. For our audience members that didn't read it, do you want to go through it and talk through the steps of what you think would happen?
Yeah, sure.
And also, what made you want to write it before?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Was it a concern for the space? Was it something that you were seeing in play? Like, why did you decide to write it?
The catalyst for me writing it was, bouncing around on Reddit, being in r/Bitcoin and then r/BTC, and I started realizing that whenever I was reading through all the comment threads in r/Bitcoin, and I find myself getting angry, and I was like, I had to take a step back and analyze that and figure out where is this coming from, why am I getting emotionally charged reading through these comments? And the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I started looking at some of the patterns. It seemed that there were a lot of just blind rhetoric statements going around on both ends of the spectrum. And a lot of what Green Berets, a lot of what we do is analyze situations, identify patterns, and then say to ourselves, what would I do if I were in their situation? So if I were trying to take down Bitcoin, what I would do is start to cause fractures in the community and get them fighting each other, so that they're distracted by, they're distracted by the fight rather than the progress that could be made, or the development going forward. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people, just to speak to that, I've heard people saying about a certain article, because it was in Bitcoin Magazine, and Bitcoin Magazine takes a certain slant towards either 2 meg or not. So I saw a comment saying, "Oh, it's on Bitcoin Magazine. I'm not going to share it," even though it had nothing to do with block sizes or anything like that. It was like, there we go. That's that. We're not passing on good information because they had something to do with an issue that I don't like, and that's that divide and conquer strategy.
And then the other one that I anticipated was, he's a shill for the government, or he's just a baby killer, whatever the ad hominem attacks go to, and what's the Saul Alinsky book, Rules for Radicals. I mean, that's a perfect document on how to wage warfare against a community and create conflict and divide up the conflict. So you can see that stuff anywhere you look where there's resources and assets and people tied up in something. If you looked hard enough, especially in a disruptive type technology, you can find that sort of conflict.
Yeah, and I think paranoia starts to take over too. Once people start hearing these sort of theories, then they're like, "Oh, you're working for the CIA," and that thing gets slung around like there's no tomorrow.
And then that concept gets thrown into the equation too. If there are bots operating on a large scale, which I assume there are, then that's another piece of ammunition that they can start firing at people. Just accuse someone of being a shill for X, Y, and Z, and then whatever they say from there is suspect.
Yeah. So would that be the first step in your article, is to set up this divide and conquer?
Well, the first step is always to, like in a special forces team, like when we get a mission, what we do is we isolate. It's called isolation. We go in an ISOFAC, isolation facility, and we separate ourselves for a week at a time. Just nothing but us, our teammates, which is a group of 12 guys on a best case scenario, and all we do is we analyze the situation based on the commander's intent, and we come up with courses of action. So here's 3 courses of action that we could take, and here's what we think will happen in each course of action, and then we argue over the best course of action to take, and we present it. So my guess would be if there was a team or a number of teams working on something like this, something similar to happen, they'd just take a look at the space, identify potential conflict points, identify key players, and just start putting up a spider web of who's connected to who, how they're connected, where the conflict points are, and then start to identify ways to exploit those. And if you have a lot of resources and a lot of time and some really sharp people, you can accomplish quite a bit in a pretty short amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it in personal life where you get a shit stirrer who will basically just come in and just stir up crap and just watch the unfold and grab their popcorn and start.
Damn trolls.
Yeah, I mean, it's government trolling, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, and this is something that I've had. I think I was on a podcast a while ago. Like I would venture to say that there are elements either funded by the government, probably funded by governments all over the world, but not specifically, because you don't. It's really easy, just for the sake of plausible deniability, to separate connections, and then, well, hell, you can use Bitcoin to pay your people, and then you're completely disconnected from any sort of responsibility. So, like, I would venture to guess that governments are at play globally, but also, large organizations, wealthy people who don't want to see this become a reality, or wealthy companies. But yeah, it could be any of the above or all of the above.
Western Union.
But and it's entirely possible too that it's just it's not something on their radar, and they're like, whatever. I mean, they could be going the Kodak path and just not focusing on it. But if you have the right people in your Rolodex and you have the mind to accomplish something.
You have this concept of people also demonstrations that the agent provocateur that will come in and just start throwing beer bottles at cops. And there's actually been footage. I remember seeing this footage. It was amazing. It was a demo, and some guy really was throwing brick at a cop. And then the cops grabbed him, pulled him behind the lines, and he sort of scuttled off. And the video footage then showed that guy was wearing the exact same police-issued shoes than the rest of them, and went from there. But that's right, and something to do with the media, and then the media found out he did actually work for the police department at the time. But these sort of things where you provoke you start a provocation, provoke a provocation. I'm living too long.
Provoke 'em.
I'm living too long in Germany, and so. But yeah, you basically can set up ways where you provoke a situation that is totally abhorrent, and then everyone looks at that situation and goes, "Oh God, I don't want to be associated with that at all," and again divide.
Yep.
Yeah, and that would be on the false flag style.
Are we going to name people that we think are agent provocateurs in the Bitcoin space? I don't think we actually are, but I feel like that would really get us some good.
I'll say that the best ones are the ones that you don't know. The ones that don't ring any bells. Those are the ones that are most effective. And the bigger names are just, my guess, the bigger names are tools to be used for, well, not tools to be used by other people, but their name alone can be evoked at any time to stoke the fires of their arch nemesis all over the place.
So what, now that we know that this could be a possibility, I mean, I personally think I don't think it's happening in a large scale because Bitcoin is really useful. I mean, it's super useful for banks, it's super useful for governments, and it's also super useful for the libertarian in people. So it's kind of like this monster that's useful for everyone in a certain way. But saying that, if and maybe it is happening. I mean, I wouldn't have a clue. But what if it is happening? How would you defend against that? Or what would you recommend the community to look out for or to do to defend against these sort of attacks?
Good question.
Well, and I think I kind of alluded to it in the article. The most effective antidote to this sort of game on a broad scale is just being aware that it could be happening, and being aware that, like me, when I was getting angry reading the comments in the Reddit threads, like taking a step back and asking myself, why am I getting upset about this? What's at play here, and where is this coming from? So I think just the awareness that it could be taking place is the most effective tool. And beyond that, it's just developing. I mean, the block size debate is the easiest thing to point to in immediate history as a source for this conflict. And seeing the more and more we start seeing things come out, like we'll probably look back in a few years and remember that block size debate we had that almost caused a civil war. I think that's going to be looked at as just a blip on the radar, because I truly believe that this is one of those zombie ideas that isn't going away anytime soon. So developing, I like Andreas's and Antonopoulos' approach of just keep coding, keep working, and then these problems will solve themselves. And that's really the only thing that I can think of.
Pulling your ego out of it and focusing on
I don't know if it's your ego, though. I mean, is it? I mean, is it egotistical to want this thing that we're all putting ourselves, like, this is trying to save the world? I don't know if that's ego.
Well,
I mean, you should care about that, right?
Yeah. Well, the ego comes in. The ego is extremely useful. It's an extremely useful tool. That's where you get leverage, because someone who has a huge ego you can exploit. Someone who has no ego you can exploit, and you can exploit the perceptions about that person and their ego and all these different things. So finding just objectivity. It's less about ego, I guess, and it's more about how objective is someone, how much objectivity does this person have in this space, what do their actions say. So on an individual basis, like it can be dangerous going down this path of trying to save the world. Like, you can't do it by yourself, and being aware of that, but you finding how, like for me, the small experience I have in the Special Forces community and bringing into the Bitcoin blockchain space, I thought, all right, well, what do I have to offer this community? Since I suck at coding and I'm too damn distracted to to stay coding long enough to do anything productive. What can I do? So this is something that I said, all right, well, this is something that cards I can bring to the table. That's how I put it. So if everyone starts thinking of what cards can I bring to the table versus trying to prove that person X is an evil puppet of whoever, that's where it starts to devolve, and that's where it starts to get worse. So bring some cards at the table. I guess that would be a good way to put it.
So it would be a mixture of Buddhist mindful meditation and British Army keep calm and carry on.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it, and having a good sense of humor too, because when things get bad, being able to laugh at it, that's about the only way you can survive long term without losing your mind.
Yeah, well said, well said. Well, thanks very much for coming on and sharing that. I think it's a really important issue because a lot of people don't think about these sort of background issues that could happen potentially. So it's really nice to be able to say, well, and to know what to look out for.
Thanks. It's I think Tatiana's trying to talk and she might be muted or.
Oh, that's why you guys aren't listening to me. I'm like, God damn
You're
it, I
just
can't even get
ignoring
any
it.
respect. Blake, I think you should stay with us because we're going to bring on my friend Adam. And
I'd be happy to.
in the theme of the Military Tuesday theme of today. And you're talking about, bringing the right cards. Adam was one of the people that helped inspire me for a song that I did called Playing the Cards. And it was actually, I became well known for covering Masters of War, which was Bob Dylan's song. But my response to Masters of War, sort of my own anti-war song, was a song called Playing the Cards. And it was about all the different things that happen after war. I did New Jersey, I don't know, maybe the people that I hang out with, nobody really went off to the Army or any kind of armed services. And I was like, why would anyone want to do that? And what was really cool about the Ron Paul movement was that I got to meet a lot of different military people and get their perspective. And it was good because I learned a lot, but I also learned about the problems that come to people when they come home, right? There's a lot of suicide, there's a lot of PTSD, all different kinds of things. And my friend Adam had come back from war, and he was doing a lot of writing and a lot of music to kind of deal with whatever was left over there on his end. And he's coming to us today from Texas, Tennessee, to tell us a little bit about his group Piranha and a little bit about what he's been going through. So, Blake, if you want to chill with us, and let's welcome Adam House to the show. Adam, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on today.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to join y'all.
Y'all, huh? Well, that's a southern thing.
I do live in Tennessee again, so I've definitely developed a southern drawl again.
That's okay. I like the southern drawl. It's cool. So, Adam, why don't you give us a little bit about your background?
Well, I'm not a Green Beret, and I do declare an airborne deployment, but even that's kind of I don't know. Some people might not give me that credit because I never actually went to airborne school. It happens ever so often. So they put some 88 Mikes truck drivers. They put some of us in an infantry unit and happened to be 173rd Airborne. They said we need you to be a forward support company with the infantry, and so without sending you to airborne school, we're still going to send you downrange with the airborne infantry. So I can't even really claim that. But anyway, yeah, 15 months in Afghanistan. Came back in 2008 and was diagnosed with chronic severe PTSD, and didn't really take it too serious for a while, but I saw we lost a friend of mine who had PTSD as well, and had been medically retired about the same time that I was for the same issues. And he was doing well for about a year. We thought he was doing really well in his own recovery, and it looks like he took his own life, and it just, some of the people that you think are handling things well, sometimes they can be some of the ones who are suffering the most. And so it lit a fire under my ass again to take my recovery seriously again. And that's kind of when I doubled down on everything that I was doing for myself to work on my health, including getting more serious about my outlets and coping mechanisms, and personal hobbies like playing drums. So that's how I got to where I am now, kind of.
I think that that's really a commendable approach. I mean, I guess you and we kind of connect because of the whole music thing. But I noticed you're also wearing a Weed for Warriors project. When you came back, did you have an alcohol problem? Did you just transition over to marijuana, or what happened? Not, and if you don't want to talk about that, you don't have to, but you are wearing a shirt.
Oh, sorry, Adam, I muted you because there was a feedback from Tatiana coming through. You there? There you are.
Oh, yeah, I'm still here. Oh, did you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, sorry, there was just
okay, no. Oh, that's fine. I didn't know if the issue was resolved. Yeah, I was just saying I actually talk pretty freely about my experiences because I think one of the important things that we can do, those of us on the front lines of wanting to deal with the issues of PTSD in this generation of veterans, it's incumbent upon us to break the taboo, which probably has been around as long as there's been warfare. There have probably been people that think maybe we shouldn't talk about it away from the battlefield, so to speak. And I want to say, on one hand, I think it's really great that this generation of combat veterans comes home and doesn't get spit on and like physically assaulted and treated in the ways that, say, the Vietnam generation of veterans were by their own fellow citizens. But at the same time, I'm concerned about the fact that supporting the troops in our culture here in the States gets hijacked by the political elites quite often to support warfare. Well, anybody who's really familiar with the numbers is going to see that among combat veterans of these wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, you have an exorbitantly high number of anti-war people compared to the overall general public. This generation of veterans is coming home talking about the issues that are happening in war, and we're talking about solutions, but we're also trying to make it clear to the American people that we've gone down the wrong path with these wars and prosecuting this global war on terror around the world. So now, I personally, and I talk about these issues, I don't want to play the role of a victim, because I'm not. I've chosen to be a survivor. So it's not about us crying in our Cheerios or blaming somebody else for our problems. To the contrary, with liberty, I believe, always comes inherently responsibility as well. And it is those of us who have to suffer and bear the wounds of war, as General MacArthur said. We're the ones who sometimes have to pick up the mantle and say first, yeah, we've been on the front lines with this one, and we believe that the wars are ill-advised, and that we're willing to die for our freedom, possibly even willing to kill for our freedom, if you want to put it in that kind of terminology. But the point of it is, we'd rather nobody have to die, and we'd rather not have to kill anyone. And I think the American people have kind of forgotten that very basic lesson in all the war rhetoric that comes around, as well as being realistic about the problems of those of us that come back from fighting those wars.
Yeah, and you get these the typical arguments that they hate your freedoms, and that's why they're blowing themselves up. But the fact of the matter is that generally people, even if they're absolutely nuts in the head religiously, generally you might get one mad nut, but you won't get a movement of people consistently coming in and causing terror if they don't have war in their own space, if they're not getting their doors knocked down and smashed up, and their wives killed in front of them, or their dogs shot in front of them, or their whole family wiped out in one bomb drone attack, or whatever. These kids grow up and then want to are totally messed in the head. A similar thing with PTSD, and so fighting wars constantly instead of looking at the cause of wars. And that's why I really love Bitcoin, because I feel like it's a solution, one of the solutions towards minimizing wars of aggression, because they're really expensive. And so trying to find different solutions. And I know, a lot of during Ron Paul's campaign, the largest donors were from the American military at the time, and that always surprised me, because he was really one of the largest anti-war presidential candidates.
And years before my kind of libertarian evolution, I came from the socially conservative kind of establishment Republican wing of that party, and watching that party's reaction, where you'd have a lot of people in the party who would say, oh, I love Ron Paul on everything except foreign policy. And those of us who were veterans for Ron Paul were saying, hey, look, the foreign policy is the most important piece. You don't get it. You don't get it unless we stop what we're doing financially and immorally around the world. None of the other stuff really matters. I mean, we're just begging for blowback, and we're begging for more problems. But I think I may be speaking to a fairly libertarian audience. I'd say I'm probably preaching to the choir here.
Well, not all Bitcoiners are liberty-minded, but I think that people probably by the time that they've been listening to the show have become so. Blake, I'm not putting you on the spot in that, but do you feel like there is a sense of dissatisfaction in the armed services in terms of how the strategy has been enacted in some of these foreign wars?
If I had to give my personal assessment on it, it would be that if you're getting into a fight, you fight. You don't dance around. You identify an achievable objective that makes sense for, in this case, the country or your allies in the country, and you do that until it's done. And you don't mince words. Like, guys like us are going out on a day-to-day basis, dealing with the stress of, hey, this might be your last run, or you might end up in a hospital bed somewhere. So you're putting guys like this in danger on a regular basis. So have something tangible, have a goal, have something like an end state. And if we're just You can't prosecute a war without an objective that everyone says, all right, this is the end zone. It's like trying to play football when you don't know where the end zone is and the goalposts keep moving around and the rules keep changing because there's no sense to it. So yeah, I think I kind of rambled a bit there, but
do you guys think like that these wars are less focused and more kind of, you know, like we're Army guys just as you know, disillusioned. I mean, look at War is a Racket, right, with Smedley Butler, right? He wrote that. Is that like an eternal sentiment among warriors? Do you think that people feel like what they're doing in the end is worth it?
I can personally say my experience in Iraq, the best times I had in Iraq were working with our Iraqi Army guys that we were co-located with. And I mean, we spend a lot of time with them and get to know them personally. I learned a lot of Arabic. They learned a lot of English. And you know, you can relate the warrior to warrior mindset. You can relate with really easily. That's like why Adam and I can talk to each other easily, and we've never met before, because it transcends language. And even I'm certain that there are a bunch of like dudes from ISIS that if we sat down with, we could probably communicate at that level and understand each other at that level. But there are these conflict points that will not go away ever. There's always going to be some warfare somewhere, whatever the case may be. So it's identifying those things, and I don't know. It's a really tough topic to kind of nail down. But like, I think that there are definitely reasons to fight. There are definitely reasons to fight, especially if you put your livelihood is at risk, or your family is at risk, or your nation's sovereignty is at risk. And I understand all that. So it's just a matter of identifying whether or not that's...
What if Halliburton's shareholders' dividends are at risk?
Well, and then it's, you know, you get into those realms of whether or not that's the underlying case. Like, what's the catalyst? Like, I personally believe that there is a catalyst in the world of religious fundamentalism that drives this train of warfare. There is a component of that. It's not going away anytime soon, and whether or not how we fight is going to affect how strong that is. But there are wolves in this world, and they just thrive on perceived weakness. So any amount of perceived weakness on a public setting is going to be seized on, and you know, the sociopaths that exist, and sometimes they end up controlling armies. So that's dangerous, and there has to be a shield. The shield has to exist.
Adam, what do you think?
Well, you know, there's been a recurring theme in your comments, Blake, that I've kind of picked up on, the idea that we you know, whether we're talking about Bitcoin or politics or, you know, just the state of humanity, any way you look at it, I think it's important to say, yeah, a lot of times you can't be focused on the things that aren't going well. You can't be focused on the things that don't work. You have to take whatever pieces that you have and make the best and the most out of what you have to work with at any given time. So I think whether we're talking about PTSD or if we're talking about the struggle to end the war on drugs so that, you know, disabled combat veterans, among other people, have access to medical cannabis or even just recreational, or if I admit I'm not a Bitcoin guy. I don't know a lot about Bitcoin. I learned from people like Tatiana and Blake. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right, Blake, and I appreciate you saying that. I do feel like I can relate to you already. And I think, you know, we may have some shared experiences and some insights that maybe not everybody doesn't have, who doesn't know what it's like to see what war can do to a place, to a people.
And shared accent.
Adam, how you know, you've got your amazing band Piranha. is that one of the outlets that because music really my mother is a music therapist actually, and she uses music, and my sister too, funnily enough. They use music a lot for a lot of different different syndromes and problems. Do you see that music's help that dealing with PTSD?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a road that I started down. I wouldn't have gone down had it not been for, well, I'll just say on my way out of the military, it took the Army about a year to actually process me, and during that time I was in a, yeah, Blake, you know what it's like. Yeah, and getting processed is that's the G-rated word for what happens on your way out. Anyway, but yeah.
Oh God.
That's WTU, Warrior Transition Unit. I was there for about a year, and they do send you through a lot of different types of therapies, put you on a lot of medication and whatnot. And I went through a music therapy program. And we walk into the music room one day, and there's all these different instruments there, and the instructor during part of the session said that you were free to play with anything that you wanted. And well, I had been a drummer in high school and college a little bit, so I went to the drum kit. It'd been years since I'd played, but I sat down and I just kind of started tinkering, and day after day I got back into it. And next thing I know, I was wanting my own equipment again, and enjoying my time, getting lost in it again, and kind of kicking myself in the ass for laying it down years ago. I mean, I did it for a good reason. I mean, I was a family man. I was working a lot of overtime back in those days, and blue collar guy. So I really didn't have the time, the energy, or anything else to put into that hobby at that time. But since I got back into it, yeah, I've gotten deeper involved. I didn't even really think that I wanted to be in a band, but I live around Music City, Nashville, so friends and people that know me, they knew that I was playing, and they started asking me to hang out and jam with different folks and meet different people and play with different people. And next thing I know, I'm getting auditions, and I joined Outlaw Serenade. That was another heavy metal band here around Nashville, and was with them for a couple of years. And then this opportunity with Piranha opened up last October, and I had already located an alumni of Tatiana's from Berkeley College of Music. My drum instructor now actually went to Berkeley and actually taught drums at Berkeley for 2 years. And I started working with him really seriously last year, and yeah, I mean, at this point, I've decided that I wanted to kind of give back, because playing my instrument of choice has done so much for me. I say there's a few things that every vet with PTSD needs to do. First of all is don't give up. You already know your warrior ethos out of the Soldier's Creed. You never quit. You never accept defeat. So you already know that. The next thing is keep trying new things until you find something that works for you. And what works for you may not work for somebody else. What works for them may not work for you. But you keep on trying. That's the whole point. Always forward. That was my I was a logistics guy, Semper Progrediens. We always just keep moving forward, because movement is life. And then beyond that, get yourself a dog, preferably a companion dog that you can train to be a service dog. Smoke weed if you need to, and pick up an instrument to play, and I recommend drums above all. And just play and play and play.
Well,
that's what it's all about.
Well, you wrote about it too in Chaos Section. So
yes,
Adam is a ripping drummer, and actually, if people search back, there's a song called "Out in the Wind" that I wrote when I was all sad in Nashville, and Adam put me up, and I showed up crying, and I'm like, I need to work it out with music. and we played together. But he also has a new video that's unleashed today, so we'll put it into the description, and we'll be tweeting it out and stuff. So if people can share that, that would be cool.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that too. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you go.
No, I was just, yeah, we released this video this morning. It's a promo video that gives you a behind-the-scenes look at Piranha. My first show with Piranha, we were playing one of the, I think it's one of the cooler venues in Nashville, the High Watt, and we were playing for another band, Killing Grace, that just released their new album since they signed their contract a while back. And it was their album release show, so we were playing with them and had Powerhouse Kingslayer come down from Louisville and join us. And so you get a behind-the-scenes look at the band and some interview footage, some excerpts of the performance, and actually there's even a brief piece in there about how when I got done playing, I puked all over the wall behind me and passed out on the floor.
Oh, I'm so glad you included that.
It's a lot of fun.
What's the best way to reach you?
Well,
for people that want to find out more.
Yeah, Piranha is online. You can go to piranharocks.com. There's also Piranha on YouTube. It's Piranha Band. And the YouTube video, I believe it is called Behind the Scenes at the High Watt with Piranha. And then also on Chaos section, Tatiana mentioned that I write on Chaos section, and there's a piece on there right now called Bricks Drum Therapy Matrix, and that breaks down the program that I'm talking about that I've started for other combat vets with PTSD. There's 3 stipulations. Number 1, you have to be able to prove your service in the United States military, whether that's a DD-214 form or whatever you can provide for proof. The other thing is you have to either prove a medical diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder and or be a fellow alumni of the Wounded Warrior Project. And then the third thing, and maybe the most important thing, is that you have to come to a live show and see me perform on stage. And that's important because I want these guys to know that you're going to have to show a little bit of initiative and put yourself in an uncomfortable social situation where your hypervigilance may be an issue. You're going to have to overcome some demons to show me that it's important enough to you that you want me to give my time, because by the time I put together a lesson plan and possibly travel a long distance to give somebody a free drum therapy lesson, I'm going to have quite a bit of time and money invested in each soldier or each warrior. But I am making that available and want to do my best. And the offer, until further notice, the offer is good at every Piranha show. If you're a veteran with PTSD, come find me at the show, and we'll get you hooked up with a free drum therapy lesson if you want that.
Adam, that is just really, really beautiful. I really applaud you for that. That's wonderful. Really, really cool stuff. Yeah.
We
How
have
about you?
to.
Do you rock on anything? Do you play guitar or anything?
I
think he does.
Guitar Hero.
Oh.
No, and this
You do it a cappella?
I don't know. For some reason, I never really got into to music. Like I don't know.
What was your outlet? I mean, were you stressed out when you came back? Or you were just like, oh, this is cool, no biggie. What's up, everybody? I'm home.
World of Warcraft. I think World of Warcraft caught me back in 2007 when I got back. Computer game. I think that was probably my out, and that's probably not a good outlet in hindsight. My wife despises it. So, but actually, I have to say this, Adam. You got me thinking, and this kind of ties into the questions earlier. It's the contrast between creation and destruction. That's like, if I had to distill it down, it's wanting to create. Like I want to create things. I want to. Yeah. Like, you see enough destruction in the world, and it's just disgusting, because you know how corrosive it can be and how toxic it can be. And then you come back and you experience that destruction here, and it's like you can't escape it. And that's why I think that's a big reason guys start traveling down that path and they get self-destructive themselves.
You hit a chord with me too. You know, talking about the religious fundamentalism thing, because I mean that's what I was raised in. I was raised in you know, kind of backwater country hillbilly area. People would call, you know, I mean that was the stereotype of where I grew up in southeastern Kentucky, Appalachia, right? So. But back in those hills, you've got a lot of small country churches with uneducated preachers and hardcore fundamentalist types. But you've also, in the mountains, you've also got a lot of people who have a strong independent streak and just kind of want to be left alone. And that's one of the things that I learned about the Pashtun people in the mountains of Afghanistan. You know, I mean, I was in the Kunar province. This is one of the same regions where the Russians, where, you know, we helped kick the Russians out back in the 80s when the Mujahideen were there. So anyway, there's this thing about when I was there, I felt that I could relate to these mountain people, both in, you know, the fundamentalist kind of culture that they have, hardcore religious stuff, and the fact that they had a strong independent streak, that they really didn't care about that fucking line that goes down the middle of their mountains that separates Pakistan and Afghanistan. To them, they're just, hey, we're mountain people, and we really just wish the rest of the world would leave us the fuck alone. And I kind of, you know, I could relate to that, because that was kind of the attitude where I grew up in Appalachia.
And that's there's that independent streak is like, it's creative in itself, because you don't need anything. I'll figure it out. I'll make it work. And it's that destructive capacity that's the I think you could probably look at history and see that destructive virus that just spreads all over the place and gets into cultures and communities. And yeah.
It's really interesting
I think what you said was important, because we see the fundamentalism on both sides. There are fundamentalist Christians right here in this country. I know, because I was raised in that culture. And there are fundamentalist Muslims in the Middle East who all want this Armageddon. They all want some kind of major destruction. And Blake, you're absolutely right. It is the point that we shouldn't be focused on what we can destroy, but especially people who claim that we believe in the things of life, liberty, property, pursuit of happiness. If we believe in these things, and we're builders, we are creators, not destroyers, and we're never going to kill our way to our freedom. Really, you're never really going to kill your way to your liberty. You've got to have. It's got to be something richer and better than that.
Yeah, I really like that idea of the juxtaposition between, you know, destroying and creating, and you know, the yin yang of life. You know, and creativity comes in so many forms. You know, even people that do typical uncreative things, I guess accountants at JP Morgan are very creative with their accounts, but.
Hey, what's the difference between Carol Paul and Ben Bernanke?
What?
One wrote a cookbook, one cooks the books.
All right, listen, guys, this has been really fun. We have to go, unfortunately. We're over the hour at this point. But one more time, if you guys could plug your sites and where people could find out more about what you're doing, and if you're writing anything and stuff like that. I know if people go to Nashville, you got to go see Piranha. But yeah, go ahead, guys. If you could give yourselves a last minute plug.
Yeah, well, yeah, my article is I think it's titled "Green Beret and how I would go about taking down Bitcoin," and it's over at Bitcoin Magazine. And right now, I'm working with a company called Stabilitas.io. We're a risk management startup and helping companies keep track of their people that are over in dangerous areas or just abroad.
Excellent. Very cool. And what about you, Adam?
Well, I'm trying to I meant to do this earlier. I'm trying to post Piranha in the chat right now. So there's the website. Just check out Piranha, Piranha Rocks online. And we're also on Reverb Nation, YouTube, Facebook. Got all that. Check out the new video. Came out this morning. It's pretty good if I do say so myself.
And can people donate to your PTSD project where you help people for free?
Man,
with Bitcoin?
You know, I really haven't set up anything like that yet. I was just kind of, from the very beginning, I kind of wanted to do it on my own, but I'm finding that people do seem to want to help out somehow. So, I mean, I'm open to that. I'm just not set up or really sure how to go about that just yet. But thanks for saying that. I mean,
we need to set you up set you up a Bitcoin wallet.
That's what I was going to say. We need to get you on Bitcoin.
Here's well, it's a donation tracking system. I don't know if it exists out there, but for not-for-profits, a way to aggregate your donation address for Bitcoin, and it's like a proof of social, how many people are donating to you. That'd be something useful. But yeah, we need to get you a Bitcoin wallet set up.
Very cool.
I'm down for anybody that wants to help me out with this. I'm all about it, and I appreciate. You just don't even know how much I would appreciate any help.
Well, let's stick around after the show, and we'll get you set up with a Bitcoin wallet and post it in the show notes, the address, so you can start collecting some Bitcoin and get paid for your great service to soldiers that are really suffering from coming back from these crazy tours.
Hey guys, what's our magic word? Because as you know, we're broadcasting on Liberty.me. We go out on Let's Talk Bitcoin Network. We go out on IPM Nation as well as LRN.FM. But Let's Talk Bitcoin has a magic word or magic phrase. You guys want to give me one? I want it to be piranhas for peace, but I don't think that there's any real reason for that. And spelling piranhas.
I like weed for warriors.
Weed for warriors.
Well, I think some people that may support the cannabis for PTSD may not necessarily always be the same ones who support the Brickstrom therapy matrix. But I like the way you think.
Maybe creation.
Creation. Okay.
That's a great
yes,
one.
Creation, and that's what we should all be inspired by with all this good stuff. So thank you, everyone. Check back in with us next week. Thank you very much to our wonderful guests. Josh is from Vaultoro.com, an awesome Bitcoin gold market. I tell everybody it's the coolest one. Sorry, everybody else, but you can't help it if you're not number one like Josh. Oh, well, in that case, I'm definitely right. If people want to check out me, they can go to cryptomediahub.com. I will help you solve all of your marketing and PR concerns for the Bitcoin space. And check out TatianaMrose.com for some of my songs. And I will be coming out with the album very, very soon. I swear, it's done. It's just got to be the right time. So thanks, everybody. Peace out. Good show, everyone. Take care. Thank you. Bye now.
Peace.